Welcome to this deep dive. It's designed, really, for you, the learner, someone who wants to grasp things quickly but also thoroughly and loves those aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're exploring something fascinating. The hidden ways our emotions, even ones we aren't fully aware of, actually shape our reality.
Yeah, it's like understanding the invisible currents that guide your day-to-day life.
Exactly. And we'll be drawing on ideas from Gestalt psychology to unpack this.
It's a great lens. Think about something simple, like looking in a mirror.
Okay.
You see your reflection, right? The immediate image. But what if there are these subtle shadows, let's call them, behind that reflection? Always moving, influencing how you see things, how you act.
Shadows. That's an interesting way to put it.
It's not just poetry, though. It's pretty central to Gestalt thinking. The idea is that our perception actively organizes what we see, but sometimes, often really, we exclude certain patterns from our awareness.
Unconsciously.
Yeah, unconsciously, without even noticing we're doing it.
That kind of reminds me of that invisible gorilla experiment. You know the one.
Oh, absolutely. A classic example of change blindness.
Right. People were so focused counting basketball passes or whatever it was. They completely missed a guy in a gorilla suit walking through the middle of the scene.
Exactly. It shows how our focus, our attention, can literally blind us to other really significant things happening right there.
So if we turn that idea inward, what emotional gorillas might be hanging out in our own minds that we're just not seeing?
That's the question, isn't it? Maybe it's like a low-level frustration from a conversation earlier today.
Or a subtle anxiety about something next week you haven't really thought about consciously.
Precisely. And these unacknowledged emotions, they don't just poof, disappear. They operate under the surface.
Influencing things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Influencing your reactions, the decisions you make, maybe even how you feel physically. And what's really fascinating is how sometimes tiny habits, things you barely notice you do, or small reactions, they can actually be clues.
Clues to something deeper.
Yeah, pointing towards these unresolved emotional experiences that are still active in a way.
Okay, so let's maybe wrap up this part of the discussion by thinking about an example. I remember reading about Sarah, was it a corporate executive?
Ah, yes, the story with the office blinds.
Right, she had this habit, almost a compulsion of constantly adjusting her blinds. Seemed a bit odd.
It did, on the surface. But it turned out it was linked, unconsciously, to memories of arguments she witnessed as a child. The blinds were like a way of controlling her environment, maybe.
Wow, so even a small, seemingly random action was part of this bigger, hidden emotional pattern.
Exactly. It really highlights that Gestalt idea that nothing exists in isolation. Everything's connected, part of a meaningful whole, even if we don't see the connections immediately.
So let's encourage listeners, you, to reflect a bit on your own experience.
Yeah, think about it. Have you ever felt just inexplicably drained? No real reason you can point to.
Or found yourself reacting really strongly, maybe disproportionately, to something pretty minor.
These could be signs of what you might call emotional shadow work. Feelings you're not consciously acknowledging are still pulling the strings, so to speak.
Gestalt theory talks about figure and ground, right?
Yes, exactly. Figure is what you're focused on, what's sharp and clear in your awareness. Ground is everything else, the background.
And if we keep pushing emotions into that background?
They don't just vanish, they become part of that ground, but they still exert influence, just from the shadows.
So we touched on a few potential signs, things people might notice, like repeating negative patterns in life.
That's a big one. Or those emotional reactions that seem way out of proportion.
Right. And you mentioned physical symptoms earlier, things you can't quite explain medically.
Yes, that can happen. Also, recurring conflicts in relationships, maybe hitting the same wall over and over.
Or difficulties with boundaries, like saying no or protecting your own space.
All of these can be seen as, well, distortions in your psychological field. They reflect that tension between what you consciously see the figure and what you've pushed away into the ground.
Okay, but the crucial point here, I think, is that these suppressed emotions aren't like the enemy.
Absolutely not. That's key. They're not there to be fought or vanquished. Think of them more like messengers.
Messengers carrying what?
Vital information.
Yeah.
Information about your actual needs, your boundaries, what you genuinely value deep down.
And trying to keep them suppressed? That takes effort, doesn't it?
Oh, tremendous psychological energy. It's like, trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Ah, yeah, I know that feeling.
It takes constant pressure, and eventually, it's going to pop back up, often when you least expect it, and maybe in a pretty disruptive way.
So that connects to another Gestalt idea, unfinished business.
Yes, exactly. Unexpressed emotions, unresolved situations from the past.
Yeah.
But they don't just fade away, they become this kind of potential energy.
Potential energy that affects the now.
Precisely. It continues to influence your present perceptions and behaviors. Think about that example of Alex, the musician.
The talented one who kept undermining his own success.
Right. It's possible, maybe even likely, that this pattern was tied to unresolved, suppressed experiences from his childhood. His psyche was seeking wholeness, or what Gestalt calls good form pregnance.
And the suppressed stuff was getting in the way.
It creates these sort of artificial boundaries, these blocks, that distort how he saw opportunities and how he acted on them. It's like looking at the world through a warped lens.
Interesting. There's another principle too, isn't there? Isomorphism.
Yes, isomorphism. It suggests a kind of direct mirroring, a correspondence between your inner psychological world and your outer behavior.
So what's inside shows up outside.
In a way, yes. Suppressed anger might not look like anger. It might manifest as, say, chronic procrastination.
Okay. Or unacknowledged grief. Maybe that shows up as always needing to be busy, compulsive activity.
That's a perfect example. Even attention itself, from this perspective, isn't random. It's often drawn towards areas where there's psychological tension, where something is unresolved or incomplete.
So real insight doesn't come from just fixing the symptom, like the procrastination.
Exactly. It comes from recognizing the larger pattern, the whole picture, including what's been pushed into the background.
Ultimately, then, this whole deep dive is really an encouragement, isn't it? For you, the learner, to maybe start seeing these suppressed emotions differently.
Yes. Not as threats, not as flaws, but as integral parts of yourself that are actually seeking integration.
Because the suppression itself often started as a way to cope, right? A
Right.
protective mechanism.
Usually, yes. Something learned in the past, perhaps in childhood, that helped you survive a difficult situation. But that mechanism might not be serving you anymore. It might be outdated.
So these aren't just shadows to be afraid of, they're pieces of your own wholeness.
Beautifully put. Pieces waiting to be acknowledged, understood, and integrated back into the self.
So instead of trying to just get rid of difficult feelings.
The idea is more about transforming their energy. Gestalt therapy talks about creative adjustment.
Creative adjustment, what does that mean practically?
It means finding new, healthier ways of being in the world. Ways that honor both your inner reality, your feelings, needs, and the demands of your external environment. Finding a better fit, you could say.
There's almost a philosophical layer here too, isn't there? Integrating your light and shadow.
Absolutely. It's seen as a fundamental psychological imperative for growth, for leading a richer, more complete existence. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole.
And facing these suppressed parts, embracing them, that takes courage.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because it can challenge your constructed sense of self, the story you tell yourself about who you are.
But the potential payoff is a more resilient self, more expansive.
Exactly. More flexible, more authentic, ultimately more resilient. I like the metaphor of the beach at dawn. You might be wary of the waves, the things washing ashore from the depths. But those waves, those seemingly difficult emotions, might actually be carrying treasures.
Insights, strengths you didn't know you had.
Precisely. Valuable things hidden in the shadow.
And awareness, in Gestalt terms, it isn't passive, is it? It's an active thing.
Very active. Each moment you make contact, real contact, with a suppressed emotion or pattern, your awareness actually expands. It offers new perspectives, new possibilities.
It sounds like a process, though, not a one-time fix.
Definitely a process. It often unfolds in cycles: awareness, contact, integration, withdrawal, then maybe new awareness. It requires trusting that process, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Because the discomfort itself might not be a sign that something's wrong.
Exactly. It might actually be the catalyst, the very thing pushing you towards growth, towards finding deeper meaning. We see this all the time, don't we? Artists, thinkers, leaders who channel their struggles, their shadows, into incredible creativity and insight.
So the final thought then, for you the learner, is maybe a set of questions to ponder.
Like what shadows are you feeling ready to acknowledge? Even just a little.
What messages might they be carrying for you if you were willing to listen?
And how might your whole understanding of yourself, your life, shift if you started seeing these hidden aspects not as problems to be solved,
But as potential allies, as guides on your journey toward greater self-awareness.
towards a more integrated and ultimately more meaningful life?
This isn't really an end point, is it? It's more like an invitation.
Exactly. An invitation to keep noticing. Noticing that constant dance between figure and ground, between what's in focus and what's in the background within your own experience?